Nathan Cole wiped a streak of synthetic grease off his forehead and squinted at the damaged armor in front of him. The thing looked like it had been through every kind of hell known to man, and a few that hadn't been discovered yet. Burn marks laced the crimson plating, deep slashes carved jagged paths through the reinforced metal, and one entire shoulder unit had been reduced to a molten mess, as if someone had taken a starship's thruster and just pressed it against the suit for a solid 5 minutes. "Yeah, this is fine," Nathan muttered to himself, rubbing the back of his neck. "Totally fixable, if I had a time machine or divine intervention." Behind him, something shifted. A presence. Right. The owner of this war-torn disaster. He turned, gaze flicking up and up, until he met the intense golden eyes of the alien woman standing just inside his workshop. She was tall, like intimidatingly tall, maybe 6.5 feet, maybe more. It was hard to tell with how straight she held herself. Her skin had a slight bronze hue, her features sharp and defined, and her ears, long, tapering at the ends like something out of an old Earth fantasy novel. A set of intricate scars ran across her cheekbone, faint but distinct, and she was staring at him. Not in the way most people did when dropping off equipment for repair, but with the kind of quiet scrutiny that made Nathan acutely aware of every stupid thing he'd ever said in his life. He cleared his throat, deciding to break the silence before it suffocated him. So, I don't like to make assumptions, but based on the state of this armor, I'm guessing you didn't just trip on your way to the grocery store?" The woman didn't move, didn't blink. "All right, tough crowd." Nathan sighed, placing a hand on the armor's chest plate and giving it a small pat. "Listen, I'm a miracle worker, but this thing's been through the ringer. What exactly did you fight? Or is this classified, I'd have to kill you if I told you type of information? Because if so, I'd appreciate like a 5-minute head start before you go through with it." Finally, she tilted her head slightly. Not quite an answer, not quite amusement, but something interesting. Nathan exhaled, leaning on the edge of his workbench. "All right, fine. Keep your secrets. But I hope you know that fixing something this wrecked is going to take time. And before you ask, yes, I charge extra for ominous, brooding customers." A pause. Then, in a voice smooth and quiet, she said, "You talk much." Nathan placed a hand to his chest, gasping in mock offense. "Oh no, you wound me." Another silence, but this time it felt less like a wall and more like a space waiting to be filled. Nathan grabbed his diagnostic scanner and crouched down, running a preliminary scan over the armor's lower sections. The device beeped, the display flickering through a long list of damage reports, none of them promising. "All right," he muttered, scrolling through the information. "Structural integrity is at 54%, power relays completely fried, and, yep, the kinetic absorption system is basically held together with spite." He glanced up at her. "How exactly did you not die wearing this thing?" She regarded him for a long moment. "It held," Nathan snorted. "Yeah, barely. I'd say you're lucky, but judging by the state of this, I think you just don't know when to quit." No response. Just that same sharp gaze, as if she were cataloging him as much as he was her. All right, if she wasn't going to give him anything, he'd just keep talking. "So, do you have a name? Or should I just call you mysterious alien who walks around in armor held together by a prayer?" She hesitated, just for a fraction of a second, but enough for Nathan to notice. Then, with the same measured tone, she said, "Soraya." "Soraya," Nathan repeated, testing the name. It rolled off the tongue nicely. "Cool, I'm Nathan. You can call me Guy who fixes things that should technically be unfixable." Soraya didn't smile, but he could have sworn he saw the corner of her mouth almost twitch. Progress. He stood, stretching. "All right, well, I'm going to need a few hours just to get this thing in a state where I don't feel like it'll explode the second you put it back on. Feel free to take a seat, or stand there and continue staring at me like I'm a puzzle you haven't solved yet." She did take a seat, sort of. It was more of a precise, controlled motion, lowering herself onto the edge of his workbench without a single wasted movement. Regal, like she was used to people watching her every step. Nathan shook his head, grabbing his tools. Man, I gotta say, you've got the whole mysterious warrior thing down to a science. Soraya regarded him with quiet amusement. And you have the unusual human thing. Nathan grinned. Oh, trust me, I excel at it. Then he got to work, completely unaware that the woman he was chatting with so casually was far more than a warrior, more than a soldier. She was a queen, and this, he would soon realize, was only the beginning. Nathan worked in comfortable silence, the hum of his tools filling the workshop as he pried open the battle-scarred plating of Soraya's armor. The damage was worse up close. Whatever had hit this thing had really wanted to turn her into space dust. Plasma burns, impact fractures, a few places where the metal had straight up melted. I don't want to alarm you, Soraya, but this armor's seen more action than my last relationship, Nathan muttered as he fished out a fried circuit board. And that ended in a literal dumpster fire. Soraya, who had been sitting still as a statue on his workbench, raised a single, elegant brow. Literal? Nathan sighed, shaking his head. Yeah, turns out, setting up a romantic dinner near a reactor vent is a bad idea. Who knew? Soraya's expression barely shifted, but her golden eyes held something new, subtle curiosity. She had been watching him for a while now, her gaze sharp and assessing, but there was something different this time. Less like she was studying a target, and more like she was trying to understand something strange and alien. Humans, she said after a long pause, are odd. Nathan grinned, adjusting his grip on his plasma cutter. That's fair, but you can't tell me your people don't have their own weird traditions. What do you do for fun? Conquer small moons? Hunt space krakens? Engage in high-stakes staring contests? Soraya tilted her head, considering. There is ritual combat. Nathan blinked. Oh, yeah, that, sure sounds like a good time. He resumed cutting through a stubborn section of the armor, sparks flying as he worked. See, humans do this thing called movie night. It's like ritual combat, except with popcorn and terrible decisions. Soraya watched him, clearly unimpressed. Explain. Nathan set his tool down and wiped his hands on his jumpsuit. All right, so imagine a dark room, a big screen, and a group of people watching a story about other people making horrible life choices. Like, say, running towards an alien monster instead of away from it. Soraya frowned slightly. They lack survival instincts. Exactly. That's the whole point. We watch, we yell at the screen, we bond over our shared frustration. It's a cultural experience. She considered this. And this is enjoyable? Nathan grinned. Oh, absolutely. Especially if you get to say, I told you so, when the dumbest character inevitably gets eaten. A pause. Then, to Nathan's utter shock, Soraya exhaled something that was almost a chuckle. It wasn't much, just a quiet, breathy sound. But coming from her, it might as well have been a full-blown laugh riot. Nathan blinked. Did you just laugh? Soraya's expression remained neutral. I did not. You did. Nathan pointed at her. I heard it. You found that funny. You are mistaken. Nathan narrowed his eyes in mock suspicion. Uh-huh, I see how it is. Tough warrior queen. He paused. Wait. Warrior what? Something in his brain tripped over itself. Had he just called her a queen? Where had that come from? He shook it off. Just a slip of the tongue. Tough warrior person who totally does not laugh at human nonsense. Got it. Soraya gave him a look that, while still completely unreadable, felt vaguely amused. Nathan sighed, turning back to the armor. All right, back to business. I'm going to have to replace about 70% of this power relay, so I hope you don't have any big space battles planned for the next few hours. Soraya remained silent, but her gaze lingered on him for a moment longer before she shifted slightly, almost relaxing. And for some reason, that felt like a victory. Nathan grinned and got back to work, completely unaware that the most powerful ruler in the sector was currently sitting in his workshop, quietly entertained by a human who fixed things and made terrible jokes. Nathan leaned back, stretching his arms as he admired his work, or at least the small fraction of progress he'd made on Soraya's wrecked armor. It still looked like something that had lost an argument with a plasma grenade, but at least now it wouldn't short-circuit if someone breathed on it too hard. Beside him, Soraya remained as still as ever, her golden gaze following his movements. She had barely shifted in the past hour, sitting perched on the edge of his workbench with the kind of discipline that made Nathan question if she was secretly part statue. "So," he said, setting down his tools, "this armor of yours, it's custom, right? Built specifically for you?" Soraya inclined her head slightly. "It is." Nathan whistled. "Yeah, I figured. The material is something else, some kind of high-density alloy mixed with—" He tapped a section of the plating, listening to the faint resonance. "Huh, there's an energy reactive layer in here. I'm guessing it disperses impact force?" Soraya didn't answer immediately. When she did, it was with a quiet, measured tone. "It absorbs kinetic energy and redirects it." Nathan's eyebrows shot up. "Oh, so that's why you weren't turned into a fine paste. I was wondering." A pause, then, "It held," Nathan snorted. "That's the second time you've said that. What, is that your life motto? It held?" He deepened his voice in an exaggerated, dramatic tone. "The ship was falling apart, the enemy fleet was closing in, but against all odds, it held." Soraya watched him unimpressed. "It is a fact." Nathan grinned. "And a very dramatic one at that. You ever consider a career in motivational speeches?" Soraya did not dignify that with a response, but Nathan could feel her judging him. Shaking his head, he turned back to the armor, carefully working a replacement energy coil into place. "So, how long have you been using this suit?" Soraya hesitated, just for a second, then, "Many years." Nathan glanced up at her. "That's vague. You sound like you're avoiding a specific number." Another pause, then, "Since my first campaign." Nathan blinked. "First campaign? You mean like war campaign?" Soraya nodded once. He let out a low whistle. "Damn. And here I was thinking my first job fixing cargo drones was intense." Soraya tilted her head slightly. "You repair more than armor?" "Oh yeah, anything mechanical really. Ships, bots, weapons, the occasional malfunctioning cafeteria automaton." He shuddered. "You haven't known true horror until you've watched a malfunctioning food dispenser yeet a tray of soup at someone's face." Soraya's brow furrowed slightly. "Yeet?" Nathan blinked, then chuckled. "Oh, wow. Yeah, I guess that one didn't make it into the intergalactic dictionary. Yeet is, it's basically throwing something with intent." Soraya considered this. "To yeet is to throw? Well, not just throw. It's got to have a little flair. A certain level of recklessness, you know?" Nathan mimed tossing something over his shoulder. "Like if I just chucked this wrench across the room?" "Do not." Nathan froze mid-motion looking at her. "Okay, wow. You said that fast." Soraya's gaze remained steady. "Precision matters." Nathan grinned. "You really don't like unnecessary chaos, do you?" Soraya didn't answer immediately. Instead, she studied him in that same way she had been since she arrived, like he was a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit into her world. Nathan, for his part, just shrugged. "Well, don't worry. I promise not to yeet anything important while I'm working on your armor." She gave him a long, unreadable look. Then, with absolute seriousness, she said, "Good." Nathan shook his head, grinning as he got back to work, still completely unaware that he had just made an unspoken agreement with an actual queen. Nathan wiped the sweat from his forehead with the sleeve of his jumpsuit and exhaled as he examined the open panel of Soraya's armor. The damage was extensive, but for the first time since he started working on it, he felt like he was making real progress. He had replaced the power relay, reconfigured the kinetic absorption layer, and was currently rewiring the energy matrix, assuming it didn't blow up in his face. "All right," he muttered, carefully adjusting a neural conduit. "I've stabilized most of the internal systems. The energy distribution was completely fried, which, by the way, is probably why you didn't have full mobility when you got here. I'm guessing your left side felt sluggish?" Soraya, who had been observing him in that unnervingly still way of hers, nodded once. "It was compromised." Nathan snorted. "Yeah, that's an understatement. One more hit and this thing would have locked up completely. You ever think about dodging instead of tanking every shot?" Soraya blinked, as if the concept of not getting hit was entirely foreign to her. "It held," Nathan groaned. "You have to stop saying that. It's making me nervous." Soraya tilted her head slightly. Why? Because that phrase usually comes right before something doesn't hold. He pointed at her armor. Case in point. Soraya regarded him for a long moment before finally saying, "Noted." Nathan sighed, shaking his head as he went back to work. All right, so I've managed to replace most of the core wiring, but there's still one issue. Your energy dampener. It's supposed to regulate power flow and prevent overload, but right now, it's about as useful as a solar panel on a black hole. Soraya raised a brow. A black hole still radiates energy. Nathan paused. Okay, wow, I did not expect you to science check me on that. Soraya simply waited, expression unreadable. Nathan grinned, shaking his head. All right, fine. Bad analogy. The point is, your dampener is shot, which means if you try to activate any high-power functions, you will short out the whole system. He leaned back, crossing his arms. I can rig a temporary fix, but if you've got a spare component, it'd save me some time. Soraya considered this, then, with precise movements, she reached into a compartment on the remains of her damaged armor and produced a small disc-shaped device, no larger than the palm of her hand. Nathan took it, examining the intricate design. Huh, this is way more advanced than anything I've worked with before. He glanced up. Where'd you get this? Soraya hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. Then, with her usual calm, she said, It is standard issue. Nathan frowned. Something about that answer felt off. Not a lie, exactly, but not the whole truth either. Still, he let it go. All right, I can work with this. He set the component aside for installation later. So, Soraya, you've been sitting there for hours now. You're not bored out of your mind yet? She blinked slowly. No. Nathan raised an eyebrow. That's it? Just no? Soraya's expression didn't change. Observing your methods is informative. Nathan grinned. So, what I'm hearing is that you're fascinated by my brilliance. Soraya did not blink. No. Nathan chuckled, shaking his head. Man, you are impossible. Soraya remained silent, but Nathan swore he saw the faintest hint of amusement in her gaze. As he resumed his work, he couldn't shake the feeling that Soraya was more than just a soldier. There was a precision in the way she spoke, the way she carried herself, like someone used to command. But for now, she was just a mysterious warrior sitting in his workshop, watching him fix a suit of armor that had definitely seen better days. And strangely, he found that he didn't mind her company at all. Nathan leaned over the open armor plating, tongue caught between his teeth, as he carefully adjusted the new energy dampener. Soraya's armor wasn't just a protective shell. It was a system, a perfectly calibrated machine that responded to her every movement with deadly efficiency. And right now, that machine was being held together by his ingenuity, a handful of spare parts, and an uncomfortable amount of optimism. With a final twist of his wrench, the component clicked into place. There, he muttered, wiping his hands on his jumpsuit. Your power dampener's patched in, your kinetic absorption is back online, and he tapped the armor's outer plating. I even smoothed out a few of the impact dents, because I care. Soraya, perched on the workbench with her usual unshakable calm, regarded him with a steady golden gaze. You have done well. Nathan froze. Then he narrowed his eyes. Was that a compliment? Soraya tilted her head slightly. It was an observation. Nathan snorted. Sure. You can't just admit that I'm a genius with a wrench, can you? Soraya's expression remained unreadable, but Nathan swore he saw something, just the faintest flicker of amusement in her gaze. All right, he sighed, stretching his arms. I think we're ready for a systems test. I need you to put the armor back on so we can see if my handiwork holds up. Soraya nodded, rising smoothly from her seat. Even out of armor, she moved with a kind of restrained power, like a coiled spring ready to snap into motion. Without hesitation, she reached for the plating, slotting the pieces together with practiced ease. Nathan watched, fascinated. He had worked on plenty of powered armor suits before, but this was different. Soraya didn't just wear the armor, she became it. The segmented plates locked into place around her form with a fluidity that almost seemed organic, each section syncing seamlessly with the next. Finally, with a soft hum of energy, the armor activated. The crimson plating shimmered, its surface pulsing with faint golden veins of power. Nathan let out a low whistle. Damn, if that thing had a personality, I'd say it missed you. Soraya flexed her fingers, rolling her shoulders as she tested the suit's responsiveness. Systems are stabilizing. Nathan grabbed his scanner, checking the energy readouts. Good, good. No power surges, no errors. All right, now give me a movement test. Nothing fancy, just... Before he could finish, Soraya moved. 1 second, she was standing in front of him. The next, she had shifted, so fast his eyes barely tracked it, stepping sideways into a precise combat stance. The air hummed around her as the kinetic absorption layer adjusted, dispersing the residual force of her own momentum. Nathan let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Okay, wow, that was insanely fast. Soraya straightened, her expression as neutral as ever. The system is responding as expected. Nathan shook his head. No kidding. I think you broke the sound barrier just by existing. Soraya did not dignify that with a response, but Nathan swore the corner of her mouth twitched. He checked his scanner again. All right, energy levels are holding steady. No major fluctuations. How's it feel? Soraya flexed her hands again, testing the responsiveness of the suit. Efficient, Nathan smirked. I'll take that as high praise coming from you. Before Soraya could reply, a sharp beeping noise echoed through the workshop. Nathan frowned, glancing over at his console. A transmission request. He tapped the screen. Huh? That's weird. I wasn't expecting... The screen flickered, and suddenly, a figure appeared on the display. A man, tall, rigid, and wearing the unmistakable insignia of the station's security division. His sharp eyes locked onto Nathan with the kind of intensity that made his stomach sink. Engineer Cole, the man said, voice crisp with authority. We have reason to believe an unauthorized individual is present in your workshop. Nathan's mouth went dry. Oh, crap. Soraya remained still, but something in the air changed, an almost imperceptible shift in tension. Nathan forced a grin. Unauthorized? Buddy, if this is about that missing maintenance drone, I swear I have no idea how it ended up in a ventilation shaft. The officer did not look amused. This is not about a maintenance drone. We have received intelligence that a high-ranking alien operative is currently on Argos 7. Nathan swallowed. That sounds serious. The officer's gaze hardened. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you? Nathan's brain screamed at him to play dumb. But before he could say anything, Soraya stepped forward, just enough to be visible on the screen. The officer's eyes widened. For a split second, his entire expression changed. Shock, disbelief, and then something that almost looked like fear. Then, in a voice much less composed than before, he stammered, Your Highness? Nathan froze. His brain stalled. His mouth, unfortunately, did not. Wait, what? Nathan's brain was still buffering. He had heard a lot of strange things in his time on Argos 7, half of them involving engineers setting things on fire accidentally, but nothing had prepared him for the moment when a security officer addressed the warrior he had been casually repairing armor for as Your Highness. There was only one reasonable response. What? The officer on the screen looked like he wanted to be anywhere but here. His face was caught between terror and the kind of bureaucratic panic that happened when you realized you had severely underestimated a situation. Your Highness, the man stammered, his previous authority crumbling like a poorly maintained hull plate. We were not aware that you had arrived. Soraya's expression didn't change. She simply regarded him with the same steady gaze she always had, her golden eyes unreadable. I did not require an announcement. Nathan's mouth was still open, but his brain was catching up just enough to recognize that he was standing next to someone who was apparently royalty. His gaze darted between Soraya and the security officer. Hold on. Time out, he said, making a T-shape with his hands. Can someone please explain to me why I've been cracking jokes at a queen for the past 3 days? The officer looked horrified. Soraya, to Nathan's growing concern, looked vaguely amused. Because, she said, you did not know. Nathan groaned, dragging a hand down his face. That is not a comforting answer. The officer visibly swallowed. Your Highness, if we had known you were aboard the station, proper accommodations. That will not be necessary, Soraya interrupted smoothly. I did not wish to draw attention. Nathan looked at her, incredulous. You showed up in battle-damaged armor. That's like the opposite of blending in. Soraya turned to him with the faintest tilt of her head. And yet I was unnoticed. Nathan stared at her, then sighed. Okay, you got me there. The officer cleared his throat, looking like he'd rather be anywhere but this conversation. Your Highness, we will of course alert the station command of your presence and— That will also not be necessary, Soraya said. Her tone was still calm, still composed, but there was a weight to it, a finality that left no room for argument. The officer hesitated, clearly torn between his duty and the very real risk of offending an alien queen. Eventually, he nodded stiffly. Understood, Your Highness. If you require anything— I will request it, Soraya said simply. The officer, still looking slightly pale, nodded once more before quickly cutting the transmission. Nathan stared at the now empty screen, then slowly turned to Soraya. So, he said, voice flat. Queen, huh? Soraya met his gaze with her usual calm. Yes. Nathan let out a long breath. You could have mentioned that. You did not ask. Nathan threw his hands in the air. Because I didn't think I had to. Soraya blinked. I did not believe it relevant to my armor's repair. Nathan opened his mouth, closed it, rubbed his temples. I swear, he muttered, this is why engineers drink. Soraya, still composed, observed him with an unreadable expression. You are displeased? Nathan snorted. Oh, I don't even know what I am right now. Shocked, confused, deeply concerned that I've spent the last 3 days treating you like a normal person instead of an all-powerful space monarch. Soraya considered that. I do not require reverence. Nathan gave her a look. Yeah, well, try telling that to security. There was a pause. Then Soraya said, in a tone that was almost thoughtful, You did not change your demeanor when you learned of my title. Nathan groaned. Well, yeah, because I'm still processing it. Ask me again in a week when the existential panic sets in. Soraya continued to watch him, unreadable as ever. Then to Nathan's growing horror, she said, I find this amusing. Nathan paled. Oh, no. No. You're smirking. I don't like this. Soraya did not confirm that she was smirking, but she also didn't deny it. Nathan groaned again. I have made a mistake. Soraya simply inclined her head. It held. Nathan shot her an exasperated look. That is not how you use that phrase. Nathan sat on his workbench, arms crossed, staring at Soraya like she had personally rewritten the laws of reality just to mess with him, which, given the past week, he was starting to suspect might actually be within her power. So let me get this straight, he said, pinching the bridge of his nose. Not only are you Queen Soraya Valthar, supreme ruler of 100 worlds, warrior of the Crimson Blades, she who demands respect— I have never used that title, Soraya interrupted. Nathan waved her off. But you also just casually wandered into my workshop in full battle-damaged armor and let me crack jokes at you without ever mentioning you were a walking intergalactic VIP? Soraya tilted her head. That is correct. Nathan stared. Do you understand how insane that is? Soraya blinked, then, to Nathan's horror, actually considered it. Atypical, she finally admitted, but not insane. Nathan groaned, dragging a hand down his face. No. That's exactly what an insane person would say. Soraya, who had evidently decided that today was the day she would ruin his perception of reality forever, added, I found the experience refreshing. Nathan paused mid-groan, blinked. Wait, refreshing? Soraya regarded him, her golden eyes calm but lighter somehow. It is rare to be seen as anything but a ruler or a warrior. You treated me as neither. Nathan frowned. I mean, I thought you were just a soldier. Yes. A long pause stretched between them. Nathan shifted. That wasn't a bad thing, was it? Soraya exhaled, a slow, measured breath. No. Nathan let out a breath of his own. Well, that's a relief, because I'm pretty sure I have a record-breaking amount of treason charges waiting for me if you took offense. Soraya actually huffed, and for a second, Nathan swore she was on the verge of laughing. Before he could press his luck, his workshop console beeped, another transmission request. Nathan glanced at Soraya. Please tell me this one isn't from security. Soraya remained silent, which was not comforting. Bracing himself, Nathan tapped the screen. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing a very official-looking alien delegation. Tall, imposing, draped in flowing armor that practically screamed, "We are important and we know it." Nathan immediately straightened. Oh, this looks important. One of the figures stepped forward, eyes locked onto Soraya with a deep, formal bow. Your Majesty. Soraya nodded. You have arrived. The alien straightened. We came as soon as we received word of your presence. His gaze flicked to Nathan, brow furrowing slightly. And this is the engineer? Nathan blinked. Hi? The alien gave him a look, somewhere between intrigue and the kind of mild surprise one reserved for a particularly intelligent lab experiment. Soraya, mercifully, stepped in. Nathan Cole has been of great assistance. Nathan shot her a look. See, that was a compliment. Soraya did not confirm nor deny this, which, given their history, meant yes. The alien official, however, seemed troubled. Your Majesty, surely you cannot mean to linger here longer. Your presence is required elsewhere. Soraya's expression did not change, but Nathan had learned enough to recognize the weight in her silence. A realization struck him. Oh, he said quietly. Soraya glanced at him. Yes. And just like that, the moment settled over them. Nathan let out a slow breath, rubbing the back of his neck. So, this is it, huh? Soraya studied him. Then, with a quiet certainty, said, For now. Nathan huffed out a laugh. That's dangerously close to optimism, Your Majesty. Soraya's lips twitched. Perhaps. The delegation waited, silent and patient, but Soraya didn't move just yet. She watched Nathan, something unreadable in her gaze, before finally speaking again. You are unlike many I have met, Nathan smirked. I get that a lot. Soraya did not smile, but something in her stance softened. And yet, it is not a bad thing. Nathan felt something twist in his chest. He wasn't sure what he had expected when he first took this job. Certainly not this. Not repairing armor for a queen, not making her laugh, not this strange, unexpected bond. And yet, here they were. Nathan let out a breath. Well, if you ever need emergency armor repairs from an extremely underqualified human, you know where to find me. Soraya nodded. I will remember. Then, with the quiet grace that was so uniquely her, she turned, stepping toward her waiting delegation. Nathan watched as they escorted her toward the docking bay, disappearing through the station's corridors, and just like that, she was gone. Silence settled over the workshop. Nathan exhaled, running a hand through his hair, then, with a shake of his head, muttered to himself, Yeah, that definitely held.